And we're going to show you how to use Salesforce Shield in only 20 minutes. I guess the other thing from an agenda standpoint, so hacks, hat raffle, shirt raffle. As always, we'll do that at the end. Quick intro, Salesforce security and privacy experts. We have products that accelerate the implementation and management of Shield and things like GDPR, and then we have services that we wrap around that, and we engage with customers in either way. Pete said, we're going to do this in 20 minutes, and so we, Emmett, our marketing genius over there, said, well, what else can you do in 20 minutes? And so he did some Googling and Yahooing and other inging, and came up with a variety of different things you can do in 20 minutes. All seem really interesting, but we love talking about security, and so we're going to focus on doing shielding in 20 minutes. Cool?
That does seem more applicable.
Yeah. And then the other thing that came up as we were going through our brainstorm, we said 20 minutes. Wow, that's fast. And so I started thinking about what else is fast. Ham's fast, Flash, Dash is fast. He didn't make the cut here. Microsoft fast. Yeah. And so 20 minutes, things that are fast, and people said, no way. And I said, nope, I can't.
Yeah.
But you know who can? Pete can.
Oh, that's special. That's special. I can run the 100 meter in 20 minutes.
Yes. So Pete can do shielding in 20 minutes. He's really fast, and should be a fun time here. I got my stopwatch ready.
Oh, do you?
Not to put any pressure on you.
All right, let's do it. We're doing it. All right, cool. So let's get off of this slide immediately. Always a little fun when the marketing guys don't show you the slides in advance. So cool. So really quickly, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to be talking about actually live demo implementing Shield. I mean, the obvious caveat is, not everything applies to every business, and everybody's a little bit unique. But we're going to say, how can you get value as quickly as possible out of your Shield investment and really know what the big moving pieces are? And we'll look at it live. We're going to use our products to expedite that where we can around platform encryption and field audit trail. And then we'll introduce our good Einstein Analytics buddy on the event monitoring side. There are a lot of other options for event monitoring, third-party products that are really good. But the focus here is how do you get value as fast as possible? And so when you purchase event monitoring, you get an included Einstein Analytics app. So we're going to show you how to at least get that up and running and some of the decisions you might need to make for do you need something more than that down the road. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's talk about the path to value. Like where do people normally start and how they go through a Shield implementation. And we're talking full Shield. This won't be just platform encryption. So most clients start with field audit trail first for a couple of reasons. The first one is it's just really easy to understand because it's very similar to other stuff like field history tracking or standard field history tracking. And then the other reason is the longer you're not tracking information, the longer you're potentially losing information, right? So field audit trail is normally where people start, and that's really making sure you're tracking all the fields that you need to be and making sure that the history retention policies are in line with your needs. Most people then move on to event monitoring. Most people will start out by installing and configuring the Einstein Analytics app, which we'll do today, and then kind of assessing the outcome and seeing if that's enough or if they need to take it to the next level with like a fair warning or some of the other third-party integrations that are available. Finally, platform encryption tends to be the tough part. We try to break it down into a pretty straightforward data classification, business impact assessment, and then implementation phase. We'll show you those in a very cursory way today in the interest of time savings, but we'll take a look at all that. So this is the cool do it. This is like, okay, just do it, right?
Just do it, yeah.
So
we're not Nike, so we can't say that.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Are we ready to start the timer?
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Well, let's talk really quickly. This is where I have to say.
I'm ready.
This is where I have to say, do what I said, not what I'm about to do, from a sequence perspective specifically. The reason is that for time constraints, there's a step in the event monitoring setup that takes 5 to 8 minutes to kind of just happen in the background, and that would be really boring to watch. So what we'll do is we'll get up to that point on event monitoring, and then we'll do the field audit trail piece and the platform encryption piece, and then we'll wrap up the event monitoring piece after that back end process happens. So do what I said, not what I do. The sequence that you see is the right thing, but we're going to start out with a little bit of event monitoring fun here in just a second. What we have to do is actually switch over to make me presenter. So
Not part of the 20 minutes.
not part of the 20 minutes.
All right.
I need all the time I can get, buddy. So, you can talk for a second while I figure out how to get this over to my computer. You're doing great, Brian.
Yes.
Hats.
Cool shirts.
Shirts.
We ain't afraid of no GDPR.
No, we really aren't. All right, let's see if I can show the right screen. So, cool, awesome. Awesome possum. All right, are we ready? You gonna start the timer?
We're ready.
Okay.
You gonna do a countdown? Just tell me go.
Just go. All right, cool. So here we go. So we are in the first of two demo orgs we have to do this project in today. This is the one we're going to do event monitoring in, so we'll kind of have to toggle back and forth a little bit, but let's get going. So the very first thing, once you've got event monitoring kind of enabled in your org by Salesforce, one of the cool parts is it's just automatically capturing information on the back end. So that's great. But if you want to make that information available for Einstein Analytics, there's a pretty quick little step here where you need to go into event monitoring setup. And this is probably my favorite new style of how do you do things in Salesforce setup, where you literally just toggle this over to the right. So now the event monitoring information will be available for Einstein Analytics apps. And that's really all there is to that piece. That part's super, super, super easy. So the next thing we're going to do, and this might be a little foreign to you if you don't use Einstein Analytics today, but there's something called the Analytics Studio. And so one thing that's a point of clarification from previous conversations I've had is when you purchase event monitoring, even if you don't have Einstein Analytics, they do grant you Einstein Analytics licenses, I think it's 2, specifically just for event monitoring data. So it's not like you'll have the full analytics suite, but you will be able to do this if you purchase event monitoring. Because a lot of people are like, well, cool, Pete, but I don't have Einstein Analytics, right? Or it used to be called Wave. I don't have that. And well, you will now, but only for this. So we're in the Analytics Studio now. I'm going to click Create App. And what happens when you purchase event monitoring is that you get this new app template, and it becomes available to you. And it's really straightforward. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new event monitoring analytics app. And then the next 5 pages we'll probably blow through pretty quick. But basically, these are all the different data sets that are included with the event monitoring. And for each one, you can determine how long you want to retain that information, up to 30 days, or not retain it, I'm sorry, report on it, up to 30 days. So I'm just going to kind of blow through this stuff in the interest of time so we can get things going. But, you know, when you rewatch the recording, you can pause and read all the different types of things. And so I'm on my last step now. So I'm going to call this app Usage Monitoring and click Create. And the idea here is that we're creating an Einstein Analytics app that can collect and kind of go through all the event log file data that gets stored by event monitoring so that you can have a quick dashboard later to reference kind of what's going on in your org. So this is the part that takes a little while. So I'm going to let Astro kind of jog through the forest on his own for a little while. And we're going to jump over and pick up where we left off on the field audit trail side.
Perfect.
As previously discussed.
Perfect, and great to see the questions already. Again, we're going to take those at the end, but great to see them, and we are watching.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Let's see. I need to jump over to my platform encryption org. All right. So we're going to start out with field audit trail here. And so like we talked about earlier, the first thing you want to do is make sure that all your fields are being tracked. And then you want to make sure that your history retention policies are configured correctly. So I'm going to jump over here. We're in the Field Audit Trail Cockpit, which is a Revcult product available on the App Exchange. And I'm going to go to the Data Retention Policy Manager. And so what this is going to do is list every object in the org that could have Field Audit Trail configured for it, that could have history retention policies configured. And you're also going to be able to see all the fields on each of those. So what we'll do right out of the gate really quickly is for our account object, I want to make sure that everything that I classified, and we'll look at this in a minute, everything I classified as being high risk, I want to make sure I'm tracking those fields. So I'm going to go clear all these little red outlines, turn them yellow, And that means that there's a change waiting to be applied. And the red means this is something you said was high risk in your data classification exercise, but you're not tracking it. So I've gone ahead and updated all those, and I'm going to go ahead and just update the policies for the account object now. So now let's say that you worked with your compliance group, your legal group, and they said, hey, it's really cool that Field Audit Trail can save information for up to 10 years, but we don't always want that. So for account information, we really don't want to have anything longer than, let's say, 7 years, because that's our requirement for our compliance standard. So I'm going to set and say that account is only going to retain information in the backend archive table for 7 years. And then in the online history table, I actually only want to see 1 year's worth of information, because anything beyond that is, I mean, either A, out of compliance, or B, just confusing for sales reps. Anything beyond a year doesn't make sense for us. So we'll do that, and I'm going to set the description to sensitive information included. And so if you were to do this without Field Audit Trail Cockpit, you can. All of that information lives in the metadata API. There isn't another user interface for it. So this is how we do it, and it's how we get it done quickly. So basically, you would do that process for each of the objects in your org. Just make sure you're tracking the right information, make sure that history tracking is enabled at all, and then make sure that you've got your history retention policies configured as appropriate for your organization. And honestly, that's as easy as Field Audit Trail can be. I mean, this is one of the ones where we say, you know, we're going to do it all in 20 minutes, and people are like, no way. This is one of those things where, like, it really is pretty quick.
And we're assuming that you already understand the retention policy that you want to track.
Exactly.
So you have to have conversations internally that support the actual configuration of it. But once you understand what your posture is and what your compliance and retention policies are, it happens quick.
Yep. So speaking of quick, we're going to move on to PE. We got to get jammed, man. This is going to happen. So we're going to talk about platform encryption. Platform encryption is typically 3 phases, kind of 4, but so it's data classification, it's business impact assessment, and then actually implementing and encrypting data. There is the subtle 4th step, which is actually just turning it on at all. So what we normally recommend is go through your data classification exercise, make sure you really know what you have in your org. This module is included with Shield Security Cockpit, another one of our products that allows you to, at a field by field level, define what your security posture is for the data contained in that field. We won't walk through the whole process right now, but you can see I've already classified a lot of my fields as restricted and public and so on. And we'll move over to the Platform Encryption Analyzer. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select the fields that we want to encrypt. We're not going to actually kick off encryption right now. And we're going to initiate a business impact assessment, which basically takes all those fields and says, okay, well, if you wanted to encrypt that, cool, this is what the outcome would be before you go ahead and try it. And so this can be a really tricky piece in manual mode, but what I'm going to do is just filter down just to fields I've classified as private or restricted. And I'm just going to say all of those fields, if I classified it that way, I want to encrypt it. So I've selected it. I can now see that of the 721 fields in the org, 72 of them are on my wish list, so to speak, and I'm going to kick off the analysis. Now, while that's running, I'm going to jump into the back end in the setup, and we're going to make sure that encryption is even available in this org in the first place. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that somebody, normally not yourself, although in this case I'm the only user here, so we're going to do it this way, that somebody who's, again, not you, and very responsible, has the ability to go manage the encryption keys in your org. So I'm going to create a new permission set called Manage Encryption Keys, and hit Save. And I'm going to add 1 permission to it. It's a system permission. And that system permission is conveniently called Manage Encryption Keys. And so we'll do that. I'm going to come up here and hit Save. And then again, not best practices. I'm going to assign this to myself so that I can show you the next step. So I'm going to go in here and add myself to that permission set. And now I have the ability, if I go over here to encryption settings, I can go to the key management, and I can go ahead and generate a tenant secret. So what this does is it generates the keys that Salesforce needs to use for platform encryption. So you can see it actually generated search index and data keys. So that's done now. One other thing that's new that you might want to, and you can see that now that I've done that, you now have a couple of new sections here, encryption policy and encryption statistics that didn't exist before. One other thing that's new is I'm going to go ahead and enable deterministic encryption in this org. So that's a new scheme. We're not going to go into all the details of what is Shield today, but we can talk about that later. The other thing I'm going to do really quickly is we'll say that for our use case, we do want to encrypt all files and attachments and the search indexes. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And then we'll go check on the results. Cool. So that has now been saved, and we are encrypting files. We've got all that good stuff. Everything should be good. So over here, we've got the results of our business impact assessment now. So it took a couple minutes, but basically what it did is it took all the rules of platform encryption and all the fields you wanted to encrypt, and it came out with like, this is what's possible. So down the right-hand side here, you can see the results. So you can see that account name is referenced in these three list views as a sort criteria. We'll still allow you to encrypt that field if you want to, but you just need to know that it's going to get removed from the sort criteria for the list view. So we'd like to make sure you have all the information before you proceed. And that field is only supported by the traditional probabilistic scheme. So we'll only give you the ability to do what you want, what you really can do, or what the system will allow through the product. So you can see that billing address is good to go. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just kick off encryption for that field. It's going to, it tells you exactly what's going to happen, but it's basically Salesforce will then send you an email and let you know how things went. So now let's say that we've got this field called in where equal, which is an appropriately named field, but basically it's my reminder to myself that this one exists in a where clause in a couple of classes. One is SOSL and one is SOCL. And with deterministic encryption, you actually can encrypt that field. So we give you the ability to do that too. But let's say I really want to do it with probabilistic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to in where equals, and I'm going to, actually, let's do this on in where like, because that way we can save an extra minute. So I'm going to say for in where like, I want to be able to encrypt that field. So the quickest mitigation in the whole world, I just happen to know, because I'm super smart, that there's some other field that will work for my query. And I'm going to save my class. And now, if I go ahead and re-perform my analysis, so this will take just another minute to run, hopefully what we'll see is a slightly different outcome for in where like. So, well, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great on time.
12 minutes.
We're doing great on time.
Great on time?
We're doing great on time.
You want some of the questions now or still hold those?
No. Hold on, buddy.
You're fast. You're not that fast.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we're going to let this business impact assessment run.
Like a steeplechase. You can run an 800, but when you have those big blocks you got to jump over, that
it does make it trickier.
Yeah,
trickier. So, so cool. So let's run back over to our event monitoring org. So you can see now that Astro's running, and he's done all of his magic on the back end. Thanks, Astro. And I'm actually going to close that and go into my usage monitoring app. And so what you can see in here now is there's a bunch of dashboards. If I can find my mouse, there we go. So it automatically set up a bunch of dashboards. There's not going to be a lot of data in this org because it's a pretty fresh one, but if we look at, for instance, report downloads, right? There probably aren't going to be any, but you can come through here and you can start to see like who's doing what and what browsers from where, and you can start to see reports that are downloaded the most. This can really help with forensics around like who's getting at the information and exporting it out of the system, right? Another one that I really like a lot is some of the performance stuff, right? So again, looking at reports, you can see how long your reports are actually taking to run, right? Conveniently, all 0 in this brand new fresh org, but as data starts to get collected, it gets a lot more interesting. Yeah. So one thing to make sure of though is, okay, we set up our app, and it went ahead and kicked off the data flow, and everything was fine. But one thing you need to make sure is that by default, just like any other dashboard in Salesforce, it's going to get stale. So you need to make sure that this thing runs on a regular basis. So just I don't know, pro tip or whatever, Salesforce normally loads log file information in around 3 in the morning, wherever the org's time zone is. So what we normally recommend people do is refresh the data for this app somewhere around like 7 or 8 a.m., depending on how much you normally have and if that's amenable to your business. So you get fresh data on a regular basis. And so what we're going to do is, one thing you'll notice is when you're in the Analytics Studio, the little wrench icon is actually a little different than it is in the rest of, or gear icon is a little different than it is in the others. And what we're going to do is go in here and go to the Data Manager. And so when you're in the Data Manager, you want to make sure you're looking at data flows, and this usage monitoring data flow is the one that got generated by the app. So you can see over here, it's not scheduled to run on a regular basis, so I'm going to go ahead and schedule it now. So I want to run this, basically I want to run this every single day. This is just one of those things that you really want to make sure you're up to date on your information. And I'm going to go ahead and go down here and schedule it to run at 7 a.m. every day. If you want to, you can send email notifications when it completes. And now it's going to be scheduled, and in going forward, your data is not going to get stale, which is really nice. So one other thing that I like to make sure people do, and this is one of those areas where yeah, it's actually a feature I wasn't really aware of entirely on Einstein Analytics or Wave until recently. But you actually do have the ability to set some light alerting on your system. So for instance, if we wanted to go into Visualforce requests, and we want to send an alert when the view state size on average or max is exceeding a certain level, right? So we're a developer, we really just want to know, how is the user experience? Because event monitoring is it can enable a lot more than just security, right? So we'll set a new, and I'm going to say I want to know anytime it's more than 85 kilobytes, right? So I want to know every single day if that happens, but I'm going to set it to run after I know my data got refreshed. So just a handy tip and something to really keep an eye out for. You can do the same thing from a security perspective around things like IP address violations and stuff like that. So it's really handy, it's really nice, and that's the really quick version of like how can we just start to get at event monitoring information. Once you start getting used to that and you put a business process around reviewing it on a regular basis and somebody kind of owns that, you can decide if it's enough for you or if you need to store information for a longer period of time, like longer than 30 days, if you need historical trend reporting, if you need a lot of other stuff that frankly you probably could do in Einstein Analytics from a reporting perspective, but it might be really challenging. But storing information longer than 30 days is just not something you can do inside the platform. So you would need to leverage a third-party integration for that. So last step, we're back to platform encryption. We can see that my field that I initiated encryption on is now encrypted on the back end, which is great. And we can also see that our in-where-like field is now clear to encrypt. And we would be able to proceed with encryption on that field too. And so that's kind of a mitigation and re-implementation exercise that we go on. How are we doing on time?
You have 2.5 minutes.
So did we just sit and stare at each other for 2.5 minutes?
Is that it?
That's it.
Fast.
It was pretty fast, yeah.
Yeah, really fast.
It's pretty fast. So, so cool. I think what we'll do maybe then is switch back over to slides to wrap up and answer questions.
Yeah, and just to make sure everyone saw what just happened, and there's a lot of people that have Shield or have components of Shield and aren't being able to deploy fast enough or are struggling with the management of it. And what we saw within Salesforce Shield in a real environment, that wasn't slideware, right? That was just to confirm. I'm going to explicitly ask if that was. Emmett's really good at slides, and
I tried to get away with pre-recording it, and Emmett said, "No, you gotta do it."
Right, that wasn't like a demo deck. That wasn't an automated video. That was running behind the scenes. This was
legit.
Legit. And so, for those of you that joined today that have Shield or trying to really confirm you're getting all the value from the implementation and the ongoing management, we can help. And you just saw, hopefully, you get some tidbits of that you can take back to your organization and start to tweak a little bit better and improve your security posture. So let's do, and yeah, 17 and a half was fast. Let's go with a lightning round of questions.
Sure.
And we'll do them in the order that they came in, which
Sure.
I guess logically started out with the order you started. So on the event monitoring, you are
Yep.
creating this app not in Salesforce, but in Analytics Studio. What is it? Or which is it?
Got it. No, that's a good question. And if you're not like used to Wave/Einstein Analytics, then it can be a little confusing. So Analytics Studio is Salesforce, but it's basically it's what you use to generate Wave apps, and so, or Einstein Analytics apps. So when you have Einstein Analytics, it's just what you use to create apps. And so it's a Salesforce Einstein Analytics app running inside your org.
Perfect. Next question on Field Audit Trail. How did your data classification show for each field?
Yeah, so one thing that we kind of went over pretty quick was in Shield Security Cockpit, there's the business impact assessment, what we call the platform encryption analyzer, that does all the analysis of the rules. There's the other tab called data classification. And so when we do that, we do it as a workshop event where we'll go on site and work with the CISO, the compliance folks, the legal teams, the Salesforce product owners, and really go kind of object by object, field by field, what's our security posture for each of these things. So we applied it inside of Shield Security Cockpit. And then if you use Field Audit Trail Cockpit, we leverage some of that information that we generated on the data classification exercise to show you any holes or risks on your Field Audit Trail configuration.
Perfect. And we'll take one more. Does Analyzer button identify report filters and list views?
Yeah. Yeah, you would have seen that on the account name field, the sort criteria for the list view. Yeah, it's one of those things we kind of call like the hidden rules of platform encryption, and it can be a real gotcha for a lot of clients. So it was really important, even though it was incredibly difficult to build, it was really important for us that piece be included, because it's one of those things where the system will allow you to encrypt the data, but it'll actually remove the field from the report filter of the list view, which I'm sure whoever posted that question already knows.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So there's a couple more, Emmett, and we'll take those offline and we'll follow up just in the sake of time. So now what? Next webinar. So you're implemented, you're using it, and now next webinar is going to be focusing on maintaining Shield. Emmett, 18 and a half minutes. We'll see how fast Pete is, but essentially it's not a set it and forget it, as all the folks that I'm sure here with us today know. Once you get implemented in Shield, things happen to your org. You make Salesforce has new releases, your security posture changes, and so there's an ongoing maintenance activity, and we'll focus on that during our next webinar. And then lastly, we've got our resources page. Follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a bunch of resources and assets. And I think with that said, Emma, do we go to, I don't think we did our hat time slide.
Hat raffle time.
So we'll go to hat raffle, and we'll start with, we'll do one hat, and we'll do the shirt. We'll do the white?
Yeah.
Or let them choose. All right, so we got